Welcome to the Head Shepherd podcast. I'm your host, Mark Ferguson, CEO here at NextGen Agri International, where we help livestock managers get the best out of their stock. Before we get started, thank you to our two fantastic sponsors for continuing to sponsor this podcast. MSD Animal Health is perhaps better known as Cooper's Animal Health in Australia and for their Allflex range across the world, with a comprehensive suite of animal health and management products. Heiniger is a one-stop shop for wool harvesting and animal fibre removal. The Heiniger team have a deep understanding of livestock agriculture, backed by Swiss engineering and a family business dedicated to manufacturing the best. We are grateful to our sponsors for their support, helping us bring Head Shepherd to you each week. And now it's time to get on with this week's episode. Welcome back to Head Shepherd. You're with Ferg. Great to have you listening along as usual. This week on the show, we have Marnie Hodge from Sheep Genetics. Marnie's talking to us about a couple of quite different topics, one being short tails and the other being the genetics of semen quality. So we have a good yarn about those two things. Before we get into that chat with Marnie, just wanted to quickly mention, if you're listening to this on Monday the 24th, tonight is our feed health webinar. So that work that's been funded by AWI and Animal Health Australia. We've got over 80 registrations as of this recording, which is before the weekend. So we'll be over 100 by the time we get to that event. So yeah, great roll up. It's an opportunity to really catch up on all of the information we've been building around those health of feet in fine wool sheep. So jump on there on the hub.nextgenagri.com and register for that event. Jump onto the event section and you'll find the link to join on. If you can't make it, make sure you register anyway, and you'll get the recording sent out. Or if you jump on the hub a few days afterwards, it'll be up there as well. And I'm sure AWI will be sharing around that show, that recording as well. So plenty of opportunities to catch up if you miss it in the live form. I know plenty of people are going to be on headers over in Australia or busy in the season of the spring, which is always a pretty flat out time on farm. So may not be able to get in and watch it, but I'll be there to watch later on, or early one morning when it's raining, or too cold to harvest, or whatever rolls. But hope to see you there either way. Right, we'll get under the way with this week's show. Marnie Hodge. Marnie's the Senior Development Officer at Sheep Genetics in Australia. She's also done some independent research there, both within her PhD and since being at Sheep Genetics, on a couple of different topics, semen quality and the impacts on AI result, as well as the work that she's done around short tails. So we'll get into that episode right now. Welcome, Marnie, to Head Shepherd.
Thanks for having me, Ferg.
Great to have you. We've had a few false starts, but we are good to go. We're going to talk about a few different things, not things that always talk about together. I guess tail length and semen quality aren't two things that necessarily flow together, but that's where we're going today. Before we get into that, it'll be great just to run through a bit of your background. You're the Senior Development Officer at Sheep Genetics currently, but I guess just maybe career to date would be a quick cook's tour of how you got to that role.
Yeah, easy. I've been working at Sheep Genetics for the last 3 years. Last 8 months or so, being the Senior Development Officer, but essentially not a lot's changed apart from doing some more project type things. Still core responsibilities of working with sheep genetics clients, which is namely stud breeders, to help improve their flock's genetics through explaining what ASBVs are, how to better use them, what kind of tools in their genetics toolkit they can use, and explain to their commercial clients of how to improve their flock's genetic merit, essentially. Before that, I was working at AI Centre down in Dubbo for sheep, so did a lot of help with AI programs, embryo grading for ET flushes, lots of collection of semen and assessment of semen. So that's, I guess, where this varied background kind of comes in, and it is a bit of a whole mix, and that kind of feels like my career to date is a good summary, is a whole mix of just random stuff that's led me to where I am today.
Sounds quite familiar. That's pretty much my career, random stuff.
Just make it up as you go on.
Exactly. Let's talk tail length to start with, and then we'll get back to semen quality. But yeah, I guess you've done some research on tail length and I guess the genetics of tail length, really. Maybe just quickly give us a run through that project, what that data set was, and what you've been up to.
Yeah. So I did this when I was working at SG. So it was, I think, started at probably this time last year. And the aim was to do a bit of analysis and get a bit of a paper for a AAABG. Just kind of keep my finger on the pulse in terms of all things genetic analyses, because I'm a little bit removed from that working at SG now.
And get a trip to Queenstown would have to be.
Yeah, that's right. Just a nice bonus of doing the hard work. But essentially, we had a data set. Like, it's not a trait that's used in the genetic evaluation at the moment. We don't have a breeding value for it, but there is a bit of data there that was collected through the resource flock and also through a few SG client flocks as well. So it's pretty fortunate to have the data collected there ready to roll. But essentially just did some genetic parameter analyses, which involves calculation of heritabilities and genetic correlations. And it was found that tail length's really, moderate to highly heritable, which on the scale of things compared to other traits, it's pretty highly heritable. So definitely potential to reduce tail length through genetic selection. But there's a few kind of key considerations that we would want to think about before we put forth a breeding value for it.
Cool. So one of the things, I guess, your research, whether knowingly or not, changed something that we do. We were scoring tail length and then sort of moved to, your research showed that it was more highly heritable to measure actual length, or centimetres of tail rather than score.
Yeah, correct. Quite substantially more highly heritable if you take a centimetre measurement using a tape measure compared to just scoring 1 to 5 based on the length of the tail relative to the hock. Which is a good thing because it means that we're picking up more genetic variation. We can make increased rates of genetic gain if you wanted to select for it. But it does take a little bit more time to measure, as I'm sure you've found.
Well, I don't do any work, so it's okay. People that I asked to do. Yeah, I mean, I guess our original hypothesis was that because lamb weight changes so much from one that's 5 weeks old to one that's 3 days older in the tailing grade and when you're marking them, then that's kind of, I guess, where the scoring system was thought to be better because it would be always relative to that hock. But it's great to know that obviously there's a bit we lose some accuracy because of that birth date effect. But I guess that can be accounted for in genetic analysis if we know birth date. But
yeah, that's right. I guess just having that more specific measurement allows us to pick up that genetic variation to a greater degree, which is good. But it means a little bit more work for those people that would be wanting to measure it.
Yeah, excellent. I guess if we think about what's going on, I mean, there'll be people out there wondering why we're bothering, but I think hopefully that's relatively obvious for some. There's already European countries that have banned tailing, and I guess as we've seen in everything in life, when Europe does something, eventually it ends up elsewhere in the world. And I guess I've had the pleasure of seeing some short tail flocks over the last 10, 15 years, and it's quite amazing what genetic variation that's out there and what that kind of means. And I think, anyway, if we get into what's actually happening, I guess if people think about a short tail, are we dropping off bones, or are we just shortening bones? How are we making a tail shorter? Is that something you got into?
Yeah, short answer, we don't know at this stage. Unfortunately, we don't have the data to fully do that correlation. That's where, I guess, getting more data where people are taking a centimetre measurement and also measuring the length of the body as well would be really helpful. This has been collected in resource flock, but we just don't have the amount of data that we need to actually accurately measure it and calculate correlations at the moment. But it is definitely a big key consideration. Like, we obviously don't want to put forth a breeding value and, get people to start selecting to reduce tail length. And it then has some kind of negative influence on body conformation or structure. I can see tail length as being one of those traits too that, the shorter isn't always the better. Like, we need to think about welfare from like a minimum tail length perspective as well. So it's probably going to be one of those optimized traits. But yeah, short answer for we don't know at the moment, unfortunately. We just need a bit more data to actually look at that in a bit more depth. Yeah,
cool. And I guess there are those known deleterious sort of mutations where there are problems, and so we know that we want to be avoiding them. And I guess what I've seen over time is you don't seem to be more likely to come across them by selecting for shorter tails. So there's something like there's mutations out there we don't want to end up with, but it seems all goes well if you just go quantitative. And I guess you're right, we probably do have to optimise it. I feel like we're a little way away from that at the moment, but that's where you'd get to. I guess some of your short-tail breeds obviously are already where they need to be. I think the cool thing that we see is once they get to a certain length, they obviously become tactile or whatever. They can lift their tail, and so it's sort of, less likely to end up with crap on the end of the tail, and that's sort of where you want to get to.
Yeah, exactly. And it also depends on the type of sheep that you've got. Like if they tend to be pretty bare around the crutch, then, having short tail length might not necessarily matter. If they can move it out of the way and function perfectly fine and don't get too daggy, that's not a biggie.
Yeah, exactly. And it is quite amazing how you kind of get your head around what a sheep looks like with a short tail, but then once you sort of work with sort of medium tail sheep, I suppose, or those that are genetically shorter and then therefore not tailed, you kind of just get used to that's what they look like. It's amazing how quickly you just become accustomed to what they look like, which is all these little mindsets that change as we go. Given that it is highly heritable and there is a few people interested in it, and definitely we will acknowledge that there's lots of people who won't go down this line, at least for a while anyway. Is it something that will end up in an SG run somewhere, or is it on the list, or is it a fair way from the list still?
I wouldn't say in terms of SG developments, it's of the biggest priorities, which is probably how it's landed upon my desk to get done. We have quite a few other big developments that we need to do, like combined land plan, merino select updates and things like that. But yes, as you mentioned, like it's something that, there's potential that it'll have some kind of regulation put forward over it in the future. So if we can create a breeding value and select for it genetically, it's a cumulative, welfare friendly trait. Like let's, get that out and get it done.
Yeah, excellent. So I guess a quick synopsis of where we are now in the interview is, if we're sort of closing out the short tail bit, but so if you are measuring it, measure it by centimetres, not by scoring. Obviously, store that data. The longer people store it, the more data there'll be, and then therefore when that gives us a lot more power, or you a lot more power when you go to run those first analyses. If we don't do anything about it for 10 years and then decide we want to, then obviously we start from scratch. So if people are keen on it, the recommendation would be to measure in centimetres and keep storing it. I assume with such a high heritability, even just physical, like selecting without a breeding value, won't be as good as it would be with one, but it's still, you can make genetic gain.
Yeah, correct. I know of a few flocks around that have visually selected for it over the last 10 years, and they've managed to get to a point where they're very happy with it. But like you said, you're not going to make the same rate of gain if you're visually selecting versus using a breeding value. The other thing, because it's so heritable, it'd be interesting to look at whether there's any markers that are having a significant influence.
Yeah.
It's on the list to do, but there's always things to do. But would recommend measuring it in centimetres, sending that data to us, and if you've got any questions, get in touch with Sheep Genetics.
Yeah, cool. Do we know whether that high heritability is some sort of potential breed effect or potentially marker, I suppose? That's
probably more marker than anything, but unsure. We don't have a lot of data across a lot of diverse breeds at the moment, so yet to be decided.
Right, I said we'd move on, so we should. Back earlier in your career, you did some work around heritability and genetic parameters for semen traits in Australian sheep. Let's shift gears now to, obviously, AI is, or artificial insemination in this case, which we never used to have to explain. But major variation, major frustration for a lot of producers, and often we just don't know what went wrong, and so that's what we're going to chat about now, is sort of some of the variation that you've seen. But maybe just run us through the study that you did do.
Yeah, so I essentially was very fortunate. I worked at an AI centre in Dubbo, so I had a heap of data to work with. The study essentially involved looking at semen quality being percent motile and linking that up and finding whether there's any kind of correlations between that and pregnancy status or fetal scan count. Didn't have direct information on like lamb survival type stuff, but just wanted to look at those kind of early conception type traits and see whether there was a link. Yeah.
Excellent. So one of the findings from that was that the AI site, which I'm assuming is sort of other words for farm, was highly significant for both conception and fetal counts or fecundity, I suppose, while things like fresh or frozen had no significant effect. Obviously, that would suggest, as you'd expect, that it's sort of these farm factors, but often we can do the same. Well, we feel like we do the same protocol and get a different result, but obviously there is significant difference in what we do because it's shown up in your stats.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's quite an expensive venture to go down if the results aren't as positive as what you'd want them to be. It's a bit of a bugbear for some people. I'm very aware of that. And unfortunately, it's just in the nature of repro as well. It's a classic lowly heritable trait, which means that there's lots of other non-genetic or environmental impacts. Hard to say at this stage whether it's something to do with how those sheep are managed or if it's that kind of technician type thing. But I would assume like all of the AI vets that I've worked with have been extremely meticulous. Like they do kind of the same protocol at every single place that they turn up to, including unpacking and packing of the car. So it kind of indicates that maybe it is something that's more kind of seasonal, nutritional, on-farm management in some instances, but it really would just depend. Like I know that there's been AI techs that have worked with a particular producer and, changed the rates of like hormonal synchronization or sedative that they give across multiple years to get a better outcome over time.
Yeah, I guess it is one of those very challenging research areas because it's obviously people's livelihoods are like the AI technicians and half the time you probably don't know there's lots of things you don't know. It's lots of variation. Yeah, it's a pretty tough thing to work out what is going on. And I guess everything we know about, I feel like the more we learn about reproduction, the less we know. And yeah, is there any work going on I know Sydney University or University of New South Wales, one of those two has sort of had
you see it.
I've been interested in this area for a long time. Is there some work going on that you're aware of? Or?
Yeah, there is. I would, if you're interested, I'd definitely have a look at Simon de Graaf and Jess Rickard. They do lots of really, really, really good work around this area. They actually published a paper this time last year, which was really interesting. They looked at, I think, over 30,000 ewes that were from commercial AI programs that had been in a commercial AI program. And they looked at a few more aspects than what I did, but they didn't. They essentially looked at a few things, including like percent sperm motility, semen abnormalities, which is not routinely collected in industry practice at the moment. They also looked at the uterine tone and I think intra-abdominal fat as well. And they found that most of those had a significant influence on pregnancy or conception, bar actually sperm motility. So
yeah, right.
Like semen abnormalities and intrauterine tone had more of an influence than actually percent motile sperm. So again, it's one of those ones that we probably have to collect more data and take a look at more. But yeah, I definitely recommend taking a look at the work that's coming out of the University of Sydney.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense. I mean, you know that every AI program I've been involved with, the tech will look at the semen and it looks like there's plenty of motile semen, and then like it all looks the same, and yet one will get 30% conception, one will get 90% conception, and it's pretty hard to predict which one's going to be the one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty hard to just looking at like the percent motility. Can be a lot of other things like abnormalities that are, having influence that you can't quite pick up from just looking at sperm swimming around through a microscope essentially. But yeah, they're doing a lot of really good work, and it would be really interesting to see whether the results of that is, you plug a few extra ewes and then get rid of the ones that don't meet X threshold for uterine tone or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the sort of, I guess, efficiencies we need to be looking forward to improve the returns of this process. And I feel like it's getting getting worse rather than better is probably what we hear in the industry. Your study was heritability and genetic parameters of semen traits. So I'm assuming you found that there was, of the things we can measure, there was some of them were heritable. And what are they? Yeah, so talk us through what that paper tells us.
Yeah, so essentially looked at 4 key traits for semen quality, if you will. Again, we didn't have any information on sperm abnormalities. It's not something that's routinely collected as part of like sheep industry in Australia. It's a bit more expensive, and I guess historically it's been shown that like it's not been a major issue, but that might have changed over time. We don't know. But essentially looked at sperm, like the volume of the ejaculate, concentration of the ejaculate, and motility as well, both pre and post thaw. So after you actually cryopreserve and then thaw it back out and assess it as you would if you were doing like an AI program or something like that. And they're all, low to moderately heritable, which isn't surprising, classic repro trait.
So low was in less, like sort of 0.05 to 0.15, somewhere in there, or?
Yeah, around that 0.1 mark.
Yeah, right. So, but you did do a GWAS or something and found some regions that were associated with those traits, so potentially there's a genomic part of that as well, or is that not the case?
Yeah, I wouldn't say so in this instance. There are definitely like regions of the genome that kind of popped up as being significant, but nothing like we could attribute to a marker type effect, unfortunately. Yeah.
So it'd still be like almost everything, a quantitative trait if you did go down that line.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, again, this is one of those things we were talking about the other day, just at a random conversation at work, whether it's worth trying to compile and look at this in a greater detail and see whether it's worth adding into the genetic evaluation. Probably don't have quite the amount of data to look at it yet, and it's probably a not as high priority as other things at the moment.
Obviously that work was in AI, but obviously rams running around in the paddock, semen quality, I assume, is also at play, just in natural mating. Was there any genetic parameters looking at? I don't even know which ones you would look at to do that, but is there anything in that? Could you find anything that linked semen quality to natural sort of reproduction?
No, I haven't looked at that at all yet. It's something we were talking about the other day, actually, whether we take a look at those kind of single sire mates and look at it in a bit more detail in that aspect, or syndicate mates, and then for those flocks that genotype everything for parentage, we could kind of look at it there. But yeah, we haven't looked at that yet, unfortunately. But it'd be really interesting because at the moment we've just got scrotal circumference as a proxy.
Yeah. I mean, that's there's so many unknowns in this world that eventually we'll hopefully get to understand. But yeah, you're right. And then there's a massive environmental influence as well. So it's tough. But I mean, you do see those like a ram lamb that. Well, everyone's got their story of a ram lamb gets out and gets 200 pregnant overnight or whatever. But equally, when you do syndicate mates and one ram gets 30, 40, 50% or whatever, and the other one gets bugger all, is that from lack of working, or is it just semen quality, or is it a combination? Or they're all. And does that breed on? I suppose is the big question.
Yeah, exactly. Really, really hard to actually know.
Yeah. All right. We've got no answers, but we've got plenty of questions. Yeah, I guess where the smoke, there's fire. So if there is heritability in these differences, you would expect that there's going to be genetic variation. I guess nothing's been evolutionary. That's a big word, but under evolution, obviously there's been continued positive pressure on semen that works. Otherwise, you don't get any progeny. So that's obvious. But I guess all reproduction traits are the same, but we still see potential to improve them artificially as well.
Yeah, exactly right. It's about finding that balance between how you place emphasis on a lowly heritable trait, but also manage it through on-farm practice as well.
Yeah, cool. So in your role at SG, Sheep Genetics, and you've got a research background, I guess when you look around the industry, do you think, I guess what are the things or what are the opportunities, the low-hanging fruits for genetic improvement sitting in the Australian sheep industry, do you think? That's a big question, I acknowledge.
It is a big question. I feel like I'm probably going to get shot.
I get shot legally, so that's all right.
Low-hanging fruits, I would say, would be those traits that are non-direct profit drivers. Something like WEC, you can make a huge improvement on. Like it's a moderately heritable trait. It's also a trait that's pretty bloody annoying if you don't manage it correctly. I would say that has a pretty big impact. Like as a whole, the industry is making really good gain for WEC, but there are definitely individual flocks that probably could and should be placing a bit more emphasis on it. And it's, one of those things that it's annoying to have to muster in sheep and drench them regularly, but through genetic selection, you can make some kind of cumulative, long-term positive impact on your flock that you then don't have to have that worry of drenching them and, they gain weight to a greater degree.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm pumped that you chose a health and welfare trait. So that's good without any prompting. That's been awesome, Marnie. I guess just quickly, combined land plan, didn't talk about this before, but obviously going well. We've got the analysis out now. We spoke to Peter earlier in the year about it being released. It's now released. As far as I can tell, it's doing what it says on the label, so that's good. There must be a few high fives around the office there that combined land plan is out in the wild.
Yeah, big time. It's a really it doesn't feel like it, but it is a very big achievement. It's just something that we added onto the work plan and just got done. But when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, in terms of other genetic evaluations, like it's a very big milestone. So yeah, very, very excited for that, and also excited for, I guess, the potential that it will bring in terms of multi-breed flock profile and GBV selection for commercial producers. So it's a big outcome.
Yeah, it's great, and I've only spent the last, probably a bit late to the party, to be honest. I've only been looking at the last 2 or 3 weeks, waited till it was out for a while in case it changed too much. But it's been good to start getting our head around what those numbers are, and all the little benchmarks we had in our head have to get reimagined, which is always, well, for the first week a bit challenging, but you start to get your head around it. But it is great to be able to compare every non-final breed on the same scale, and really, I think it underpins a massive amount of potential for the industry, which is great.
Yeah, big time.
When do we get to? When's the next release? Sorry, just check. I know we've got carcass traits, we've got growth, we've got fat muscle. We've got a new release sometime in 2026, have we?
We've actually got one coming out in a few weeks. So we're actually putting WEC out on the 15th of December analysis run. So that'll be
cool.
A little Christmas present for everyone. And then for 2026, the plan is get lambingese out, get bull traits out, get visuals. Reproduction will probably be the last, or one of the last modules that we'll release.
And that'll be 20
indexes.
That'll be 27, or that'll be 26 to be watched, I suppose.
Throughout the year of 2026, probably, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Excellent. Right. Well, fantastic. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to WEC coming out. That'll be another interesting day when we start to work out who's re-ranked where. And I think the important,
yeah, that's right.
I think we won't dwell on it any further, but the important thing for people to note, breeders out there, is that it's not all end buyers. It's not just combining to analysis. There's been a lot of improvements made to the analytic capacity of the system, and lots of different things made to optimise it further. So don't just expect that they're going to shift a bit to re-equivalate to the new baseline and to the combination. There is re-ranking based on that improved analysis. So people should have a good look at their animals and make sure they're having a good look at both combined and old land plan when they're making any selection decisions. Righto, Marnie, the hot seat. Last 2 questions we ask everybody. The first one being, what is the last thing you changed your mind about?
I don't know if it's definitely the last thing that I've changed my mind about, but it's something that's been popping up more and more recently and more frequently, is around like where I get my data sources from. We've been having lots of conversations at work around, how AI, being artificial intelligence this time, can help us and can, open up the internet and increase efficiencies and things. But I don't know, I still am a little skeptical around it. Like, I wouldn't just trust Googling something or chucking something in ChatGPT and trusting the first response as gospel. So that's definitely been something I've been trying to really be conscious of. I think it's always good to, if you really want something specific, ask the professionals, essentially.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and I think, it's an interesting time, and certainly seen plenty of hallucinations when you ask questions, particularly probably in our world where, like, I think if you ask something that the internet's full of, lots of consumer type things, then that's probably pretty right. But you start getting into more fringe areas of society, which is probably us in livestock agriculture. There's lots of things that aren't, that can be, it's only as good as the information it's trained on or then hallucinates from. So definitely something to watch. So I think that's going to be a challenge that we all have. And I guess the thing that challenges me most is it was kind of all right when it was words, but now that it's images as well, it challenges you even further to just double check everything you see, not just read, which is a real, something that I guess we're the first group of our species that's ever really had to deal with such false information.
Yeah, it is kind of terrifying, but exciting. I don't know.
Yeah, somewhere in the between. And the final question is, who's the best person you've had the privilege of learning from?
I would personally say my best friend and my parents, which is probably not the answer that most people give. But I think that
lots of parents.
Yeah, I think that they all instilled really good values and have been amazing supports for me. If I wanted to aim for a pay rise, I probably would have said someone that I work with or have worked alongside. But I think it would be a bit amiss to not acknowledge like my best friend and my parents, because they instilled amazing values in me from early on, and then I've been able to have the pleasure of working alongside some really incredible professionals to help refine and enhance my skills over time.
Thanks, Marnie. Yeah, no, I think we get quite a few of that down that same vein, which is true. It's those foundational things that set us up well to go through the rest of life. So yeah, good answer. And we'll leave it there, Marnie. Thanks very much for your time. Thanks very much for those contributions. It's really interesting for us to hone we'll sharpen our pencil on how we're doing that tailing stuff. Obviously, the semen quality stuff will be a work in progress probably for the next few decades, and hopefully at some point we get to improve. And I guess that's where things like AI will become important, is where we've got these little bits of hints of information that's all mixed up, and we can never design a study to answer all the questions, but AI might be able to find the common threads between all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Thanks very much for having me, and sorry I wasn't able to give you some definitive answers around things, but that's just the nature of genetics and quantitative genetics, is we need more data.
Yeah. The two my two favorite responses. It depends, and we need more data. Yeah. Excellent. Thanks, Marnie. All the best.
Cheers. Thanks, Berg.
Thanks again to Heiniger, who are proud world leaders in the manufacturing and supply of professional sheep shearing and clipping equipment. Thank you to MNSD Animal Health and Norflex Livestock Intelligence. They offer an extensive livestock product portfolio focused on animal health management, all backed up by exceptional service. We thank both of these companies for their ongoing support of the Head Shepherd podcast.